All right, welcome back to the channel. Really excited to talk to you today about additional yoke support and the compatibility for more components to state-level Avionics, tabletop Avionics panels. Starting off on this journey back in 2018, it's kind of funny to think about that, but holy cow, it's been literally 3 years since we've been in business, and it's been a pleasure to serve every single customer that we've had. I've enjoyed all the relationships with all of them, and just hearing the stories about how they're excelling in either their private pilot training or just enjoying I'll call it the journey of home flight simulation, whether that's on Pilot Edge or VATSIM or whatever you're doing to create an immersive environment around you in Microsoft Flight Simulator, an X-Plane, whatever that looks like. The stories have been fantastic to see people start off in a simulator and move into private pilot training and finally achieve that private pilot certificate. Just the building, the learning, the growing, the fact that we've been able to be part of that has just been really, really unique and really rewarding. And so, we set out on this mission 3 years ago. My wife said if I sold a panel, that'd be really cool, and I guess she'd be proud of me. And I'm guessing, I don't know, she's maybe somewhere in the other room. But it's late at night, and so we sold a lot more than one panel, and it's been a really fun ride. But we never stop, right? I think this is one of the issues that I have. I have this compulsion for perfection and to continue to keep growing things and supporting as much as possible. And so when I say supporting as much as possible, the industry moves, we move with the industry. It's as simple as that. And this goes back to 2018. I'm going to talk about the movement, but the movement was, let's start with just yokes, right? So Logitech ProFlight yoke was the staple yoke that like everybody had. I mean, there really weren't a ton of options. So this was kind of it. It was like the only thing that basically worked in the sim. And a lot of people had it, and it was super cheap. It was like $150. So we moved from that yoke support to the CH Eclipse, and we supported the CH Eclipse as well. And these had these thumb rudders, which I'm going to call thudders. All right, we just made that up on the spot. So it's got these thudders, and it's got this throttle integrated into it. Kind of a neat yoke. We made some panels with that too, right? That was cool for some customers. The Yoko came along, right? And the Yoko Plus. And so in 2019, we had a partnership, and we still do have a partnership with Virtual Fly and supporting all of their hardware, yokes, throttles, everything. Awesome components. You're not going to find anything that is more realistic to a Cessna 172 than the Yoko. They released the Yoko Plus with a hat switch. Really, really slick piece of kit. And, that brought us to 3 yoke supports, three yokes that we supported. Then the Honeycomb Alpha came, right? And this kind of finally put the Logitech to bed and into the graveyard. But the Honeycomb Alpha came, and then shortly after the Honeycomb Bravo came. And so this was really nice, very affordable, great price point. A lot of integration to a lot of the different switches you use in a plane and simulator. And so we supported the Honeycomb Alpha and Honeycomb Bravo. And so we just had to continue to keep moving with the industry and where things were going, and bringing as much consumer grade components and avionics support as possible. So those things are, G1000s from RealSimGear, Aviatek, Virtual Fly, SIMiONIC, components from RealSimGear like a G5 here, DesktopAviator switch panels, flap levers. And it was just a compulsion to just continue to keep doing this and keep supporting as much as possible. Oftentimes with custom panels, we have customers actually send us their components. They send it to us. We do measurements. The reason we do that is because 90% of the drawings online are actually wrong. And they're actually wrong because things don't get updated. Revisions don't get updated. Switchboards change. And so we ask customers to send them to us. They send them to us. We make sure that everything will fit perfectly. And the benefit of that too is, for this customer, he actually sent us all of his avionics. We mounted everything into the panel for him, and we're going to ship him a fully completed panel. So he actually doesn't have to install anything. And we're not going to charge him to do that either. So it's just trying to continue to move with the industry and do things really great. looking at his layout in his panel here, he's got the RealSimGear G1000, like I mentioned, the flap lever, the switch panel from DesktopAviator, a G5. He's actually going to use our pedestal mounting system, and he's going to put a SIMiONIC trim wheel on this pedestal mounting system. So he'll have the yoke here, the throttle here. You can see the throttles right there. The throttle will ultimately come under here. We're going to show you how to mount all that. But he is going to put the trim wheel right here on the pedestal. So that mounts here with some bolts behind the panel as well. But once again, it's just continuing to have all of these different pieces to the panel that really make the experience unlike anything you've ever seen before. If we look at what we're announcing today, it's support for the Redbird yoke. And so the Redbird yoke here is right here. And this Redbird yoke, this is I believe it's the YK1. Great yoke, really nice. And it's quite long, right? So this presented some challenges to us of how do you do this, because we're not going to make a panel that deep. We're not going to make a panel that long. It just doesn't work for what we're trying to do. And so we've come up with a really great solution to the problem, where it's still a panel that is our traditional, high quality tabletop avionics panel. And we found a solution to basically mount all of this within the panel. Not only the yoke, but also the throttle. And so we're going to walk through that, mounting each one, what you have to do. There's some different plates here. These are these brackets. They actually come with the product. We actually had these repowder coated, so they're just beautifully from a powder coat perspective. We actually CNC'd some aluminum thumb screws here, and then we anodized them. And then we rebuilt this entire mounting system with a Teflon and then the screw, the riv nuts, everything. It was all rebuilt specifically for the customer, to give the customer the highest quality experience when he receives all of this. I think he's going to be completely impressed. I really hope so. He's been an absolute joy to work with, and we're pleased to do this kind of work for him. So, we're gonna walk through actually mounting these. There are some unique foam mounting pads that come with the Redbird yoke and the throttle. I'm going to talk about why these are important and why you need to mount a couple of extras and where you need to mount a couple of extras. So, that's what it's going to be talking about today, right? It's all part of this journey where we continue to move with the industry. We continue to keep innovating. Okay, so one thing that's really important to keep in mind with the yoke is the actual mounting of these foam pads. And so these foam pads, they are included with the purchase. And if you flip over the bottom of the yoke, this is the back, this is the front, this is the yoke handle down here. This is how you want your pad set up to look like. Okay, it's as simple as this. You want 3 here, you want 2 here, and you want 2 there. That's really it. Some of these pads come pre-mounted. You can basically use the lines, make them square, but 3 pads here, 2 pads there and there. I think it came with like these 2 and this one mounted, so we added these. But this is basically the layout. And the reason this is important is because when you're compressing everything against it with the clamps and the brackets, these are the pressure points that everything is going to get sandwiched together against your tabletop, against the panel, against the yoke. So this is what you want to be set up for the yoke. The throttle, you don't have to do anything with the throttle. You can actually put some on the top of the throttle if you want a little bit of padding between the throttle and the bottom of your tabletop. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna get a little close up of actually what we gotta do with the yoke, with the brackets, with the thumb screws, and how we start that. All right, so what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna put a little bit of blue painter's tape here on the side of the panel, just protect it a little bit. It is a powder coated finish, so it is pretty robust, but good to just go ahead and protect it a little bit too. So what you wanna go ahead and do, we have those pads in the correct locations on the bottom, and you wanna go ahead, you wanna slide the yoke in. Now, as you slide it in here, you'll find that the side brackets will also start to go in. And so these side clamps are what I was talking about a little bit earlier. And what we've done is we have put these thumb screws here on the side. You can see there's one slot, there's another slot on the back. But basically right here, you go ahead and you put in the first one, and then you kind of tighten it up a little bit, and then go ahead, you put the other one on, and you keep working the yoke right into the back there, just like so, until you get it all the way into the back. And you'll know when it's in the back because this clamp right here it can't go any further. So it bottoms out on the tabletop right there. And so you get everything nice and square, and you tighten down these thumb screws on the first bracket, the first set of brackets. So these are these thumb screws right here, these little thumb screws. Those first ones right here and here are done. So these slots in the bracket are right here. Here's one slot, here's another slot, and here's the last slot. And so you can imagine this bracket is going in just like that. It's bottoming out on the tabletop right there. And so the first one that we did was right here. The next one you do is here, then the last one is right there. And so you're just putting those thumb screws there on the side. And what that's doing is it's basically giving the full mounting support there of the yoke right there on with this bracket. And the reason that's important is because this bracket is what, there we go. So that tightens up there. So now the bracket is one with the yoke, but the yoke is still not mounted. So what we do now is we go ahead and we spin those thumb screws. So this thumb screw right here, we're just go ahead and spinning that. That's going to start to create the tension against the desk there to hold this whole system down. And you can see once this is on here, this thing is not going anywhere. I mean, I'm pulling back. You can see it's got full deflection, both areas turning, and it's not going anywhere. So really quite nice. You keep those up nice and tight there, and you can see this is all one unit. And you can see the panel here. Panel's not going anywhere. I mean, this desk is shaking. So that's basically how you get the yoke mounted. Pretty simple. I mean, we did it in a couple minutes. Really not too bad. But that's how you go ahead and do it. Okay, so if you remember a minute ago, this is the bracket that we used for the yoke. There were the 3 slots. This is where the thumb screw went through and then threaded into the actual body of the yoke. Same concept here for the throttle, except we're going to flip this bracket over and we're going to actually tighten it down from the top. So what you want to do is you actually want to back out this screw fully. You want to make sure you've taped off the sides of where the bracket will go in. So there's 4 areas to tape off. That's going to prevent any scuffing from actually putting the bracket and threading the bracket in. And what you're going to do is you're going to actually take the panel and you're going to bring it back forward. So if you already have your yoke mounted at this point, you need to make sure you loosen up those clamps on the yoke and make sure everything doesn't fall off. But basically you're going to take this, you're going to put it in, and then you're going to twist it. Okay, and you're going to twist it in very closely, and there you go. Put it in there. So now the bracket's in there. You can kind of just let the bracket sit. You're going to do the same thing with the other bracket. You're going to back it out fully. So let's make sure that you have it all the way backed out. If it's not all the way backed out, this isn't going to work. So it's all the way backed out. You put it in, you angle it to get it through, and then it's through. Okay, now the next step here is you put the panel back. Now, with this, you're going to go ahead, you're going to take the throttle itself, and you're going to take a couple of the thumb screws, and you're going to aim to put the middle thumb screw in to this hole here. Okay, so here you can actually see what we've done. We put the clamps through. We used the most bottom area here of the actual the brackets themselves, the most amount of travel, and then we tightened down the screws to go in there. And then from there, once everything was tightened up, we went ahead and we tightened the brackets in the back. And so really, you know, this is very solid, very stable. It's not going anywhere. There is a thing here. You can see a little bit of gap here. I actually have some underbracing cable management that's in the way of this yoke or this throttle going all the way back. That's why you see a little bit of this angle here and this gap here. So if you don't have anything under your desk, that's really important to take into consideration, and because otherwise it'll get in the way. But you can see here basically landing gear, throttle, prop, mixture, you got your flap lever, and everything's mounted there. So I really wouldn't recommend taking this on and off your desk. This is really a leave it, forget it, don't take it off again. So just keep that in mind. You definitely don't want to be moving this thing around too much. So that's about it from the overall mounting of everything. And thanks again for tuning in here.